How's it going, everybody? Sean Ross here, and here's my review for RWBY Volume 5, Chapter 4, entitled Lighting the Fire. I absolutely loved this week's chapter. I love just when Saturdays come around now, because with RWBY now back in session, Volume 5 has just been so enjoyable. We are like pedal to the metal, get the story moving along. The character developments, the character interactions, everything so far that Volume 5 has given us, I am really enjoying. And I'm really looking forward to see where the rest of the volume is going to be going, where our characters, their journey will be going on, and what character interactions are still yet to come for Volume 5. But this episode provided us with action, with a training sequence, with tension, a whole lot of tension, and then it got very, very emotional by the very ending of this week's chapter. And I think that's where I want to start with talking about this week's chapter, because I was not expecting it to get that emotional, at least for me, having the reuniting of Weiss and Yang in this chapter. Once I realized that Yang and Weiss were going to be in the same facility, you know, within Raven's encampment, I was hoping that Rooster Teeth and the team around RWBY was not going to make this like a missed opportunity to where Yang and Weiss were not going to reunite. I'm glad that wasn't the case, but once Weiss, you know, leaped into Yang's arms and just hugged her and just told her how much she missed her, I was not expecting to get so emotional just from that one scene. I didn't cry, but it definitely hit me right in the feels, and it really makes me realize how long right now Team RWBY has been separated. Because all of Volume 4, we did not see any of Team RWBY, you know, reuniting with any of the other team members. And especially with Weiss's character, the journey she's been on so far, you know, getting put back into like the abusive household of the Schnee family, you know, being with her father and then her brother, having like her title revoked, breaking out of that cage, making her way to Mistral to find Winter, and then getting captured by Raven and her bandits, basically going from one cage to another. She's been through a lot so far, so actually, you know, have this moment, this one nice moment with her reuniting with Yang was just so nice to see. And it's, in my mind, I actually view this as, you know, Weiss reuniting with her actual family, because Team RWBY has given her so much love and support, and it's definitely a lot of character development, because when you look at Volume 1 to see where Weiss has come from up until now, I do not think Volume 1 would ever have just jumped for joy getting to see Yang like that, you know, leaping into her arms and hugging her. Love that moment in this episode. It was just so enjoyable, and I definitely want to hear from all of you guys. How emotional did that last section of this week's chapter make you? And finally getting to see, now with, you know, Weiss and Yang reunited, we have half of Team RWBY now together once again, and it's only a matter of time now until RWBY and Blake make their way back to where we have all of Team RWBY together once again. I am so looking forward to that, but we're going to have to wait just a little bit longer, because as this episode or chapter is like insinuating, Blake still has a lot left with the White Fang and her storyline, but I think out of all of our characters, Weiss and Yang will reunite with RWBY before they reunite with Blake, but I'm still looking forward to the reuniting either way. So that was the emotional section of this week's latest chapter, but I want to rewind and go back to the very first section of this chapter, the opening section, that where we just got to witness Yang beat the shit and kick the ass out of these bandits. I love this section for multiple reasons. For one of them is that this chapter in general definitely goes to show that Yang is starting to regain her confidence. She has this swagger about her. She is driven on this mission to find Raven, as we will learn in the later section about what that is in this chapter, like why she is after Raven. But this whole beginning section, she is just oozing confidence, and I love getting to see Yang have this confidence, you know, instilled back into her character. Sure, she still has the PTSD, you know, we see her hand shake from time to time in this chapter, but she is slowly getting back to the old Yang that we know and love. And once the battle sequence kicks in, I was just enthralled with just the entire movement, the choreography, just the way that, you know, Rooster Teeth and the crew has greatly improved, you know, the fighting in RWBY, because we know they took a very hard blow, and I think many people within, you know, the RWBY community can definitely feel, you know, ever since the loss of Monty Oum, that the fighting sequences and the battles, and, you know, the fights in RWBY really have not been the same, and it's for good reason, because he was just a master at his craft. but I can definitely tell just in that section that they are definitely learning just by the way Monty used to do fighting sequences, the choreography, and the crew behind RWBY have been taking notes, and you can definitely tell just by the way that Yang moves and is using the momentum from her gauntlets to actually improve and actually bring about more force into her kicks and punches. This fighting style is definitely shown in the Yang character short we kind of had, which goes to demonstrate the improvement of, the choreography and the fighting sequences. But if this continues, the improvement of the fighting styles within RWBY into future volumes, this is going to be awesome because I am really looking forward to see where the fighting sequences are going to go as we kind of move into this volume, but also future volumes as well. But as we kind of get to the conclusion of the battle, the bandits basically telling her, it's like, once Raven finds out what you did to us, you're dead meat. And then, of course, Yang had to let them know. It's like, well, you might be right, but I am Raven's daughter after all. And then the bandit immediately realizes that he messed up and he's like, oh, you're not the one that's dead. I'm the one that's going to be dead, and then just falls unconscious. I love this section, and it just goes to show that Yang's confidence slowly but surely is coming back, and I just love getting to see my girl Yang just beating the ever-living crap out of some bandits. It was just so enjoyable to watch. But now we actually go into the next section of this chapter, which I did not think we were going to be getting, back to back in consecutive chapters, with the revelations and information we got on Oscar/Ozpin in chapter 3, and then immediately move into, the training sequence between Oscar/Ozpin with RWBY in this chapter. And what this section actually emphasized to me is that we're going to get a lot more information on aura and semblance, because the way that it's kind of dropping this, it's making an emphasis that semblances can evolve, they can increase in power. It's kind of like, grades in a video game where you can just increase the power to different sections to where you can just greatly improve the power, speed, and strength of your semblance, which I find to be very, very cool. But what they're hinting at is the discovery of not only Oscar's semblance, but Jean's semblance as well. They are definitely hinting that, and I would not be surprised if that we actually get the reveal this volume of Jean's semblance, because it has been a long time coming for many RWBY fans. We've speculated about what Jean's semblance could be. Many people, have made theories, they've speculated, but there's no concrete evidence as of yet as to what his semblance could honestly be. But the way that they're kind of dropping the knowledge is that his semblance is kind of in tune with just the way that your characterization is, your personality, your emotions. It's kind of all intertwined, as we've come to learn throughout all the volumes of RWBY. So this right here is definitely laying the groundwork that for the rest of volume 5, we'll definitely explore, the evolution of semblances, how they can grow stronger, but also the discovery for a lot of our characters of Jean and Oscar. So I'm actually curious to find out what Jean's is, but also Oscar's as well, because just by the way that Oscar and Ozpin kind of have, very similar souls or auras, I'm wondering if the semblances are different or just similar in nature. That is a question I have definitely for Oscar, but this whole section of just the training sequence I really enjoyed, but getting to see, just Zen Ren just lying there, just dropping knowledge on everyone, telling them about semblances, how they work, how they deal with emotions. That was a nice touch to see as well. But just having Nora being cute and adorable throughout this entire section, I really enjoyed as well. So definitely be on the lookout for the rest of this volume on more knowledge and more information coming from semblances, but also the discovery of Jean's and Oscar's as well. Hopefully we get that this volume, but if we don't, it's definitely down the road in the near future. So that right there is kind of the training sequence. It's not really too much to dive into, but it's giving us a lot more information on auras and semblances. But now comes the tension-filled section of this week's chapter, which I was just so engrossed in with the confrontation between Yang and Raven, because we got to talk about the mother of the year herself, Raven. This section just completely baffled me, and I was just tense throughout the entire conversation that took place between Yang and Raven, because this section definitely showed that Raven is definitely not a very good mother figure towards Yang, and wasn't even talking to Yang like a mother should in this section. Like, she was still in the role of like the bandit tribe leader. She talked to Yang as if a new recruit kind of just came into the camp and was looking to join the ranks of Raven and her bandits. She didn't talk to her very motherly. She talked to her as if like a stranger. And that right there, I was just like, wow, Raven, you are failing right now as a mother. But what this section did emphasize to me, which I think most of us already knew, is how much Yang, personality-wise, takes after Raven. Like, these are two stubborn characters talking to one another. You have two immovable objects trying to push, one person to their cause, but nothing's going wrong. But it's the dialogue to where Raven is just talking with Yang, and it's like, wow, you're a stubborn one. And then Yang immediately replies back with, well, I got it from my mom. I immediately was just like, oh shit, stuff is about to go down, because as soon as that dialogue was said, the music started to rise, and I was just immediately sitting up straight. It was like, what's going to happen right now? It is getting tense. I am loving this conversation back and forth. How is this going to go down? Who will win in this conversation? Is it going to be Yang or Raven? But some information that we definitely needed throughout this entire, mystery that is Raven, we come to learn about her semblance. We don't have a name for her semblance, but we come to know how it works. Raven can bond to certain people in her life, most likely loved ones or people that she has strong emotions towards. And she has bonds with Yang, Yang herself, and also Crow, and she can actually open up portals to where she can teleport to wherever they are. So whenever they're in danger, she knows where they are, she can go assist. But what I love about this, that this greatly explains why Raven was able to show up and rescue Yang back during the ending of Volume 2. This definitely gives us a great answer as to what her semblance is and why she was able to show up at the last minute to rescue Yang, because she has this bond with Yang. She's not a great mom, but she still has, enough sense to actually put a bond onto Yang so that whenever she's in trouble, she can actually come and rescue her, which I find to be very funny, because she probably definitely knew what happened to Yang and her robot arm, which now that I'm thinking about it, the robot arm, Raven never mentioned it. Like, she never looked at it and realized that Yang had a robotic arm. So I'm wondering, once, the conversation takes place, back in the tent with Raven, Weiss, and Yang, if she's going to bring up the fact that Yang lost her arm, because that's kind of like the elephant in the room, because it's like, if you knew Yang was in trouble in Volume 2, odds are you knew Yang was in trouble during Volume 3 when Adam just sliced off her arm. So that's going to lead to interesting conversations moving forward, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation of her telling the truth about Ozpin, because odds are this is going to be her truth that she sees about Ozpin. I'm really wondering if she's going to tell Yang and Weiss about the maidens, about this, ancient magical presence that's been in the world of Remnant all this time. Whether or not this is actually going to fall in line with the same information that Crow gave to Team Ranger, we will have to see, because most likely this is going to be seen as Raven's truth, the way that she kind of views the overall situation, and it most likely will be different from the way that Crow kind of explained the situation, because as we come to know, Team Stark disbanded for a reason. They say it was because of Raven, but it could be because due to information that Raven learned through Ozpin about the maidens, the way that the world works, maybe this is what caused, the disbanding of Team Stark in the first place. So I'm really looking forward to see where this conversation is going to go, and whether or not Yang and Weiss are actually filled in on the maidens, on Salem, and what kind of the overall war in the background within the world of Remnant is going down, how it's taking place, and where their role and what role they play in this entire game of chess between Ozpin and Salem. So this kind of just leads us into, the reuniting of Weiss and Yang. Yang finally gets to see the Shining Knight, or the new power upgrade that Weiss is able to display. And then it just leads into that emotional moment that just had Yang and Weiss reunite, which I absolutely loved. So that is basically my review and thoughts on this chapter, but I really want to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions on this chapter as well. What did you guys think of Chapter 4 as a whole? Are you guys enjoying Volume 5 so far? And how did you guys feel about seeing the reuniting of Weiss and Yang in this chapter? I definitely want to hear your guys' thoughts on that down in the comments below. I am so looking forward to next Saturday when we're going to have Chapter 5 of Volume 5 of RWBY, but until then, and until we move on to the next chapter, I'll talk with you guys then. See you later, guys.